in California. The orbiter is called a shuttle. Its name is Columbia, but it's called a shuttle because it will shuttle between the hard ground and outer space. Up to now, an astronaut had to take off in a rocket and return in a capsule, which splashed down in the ocean. It's an 80-ton glider.
Okay, your nose wheel's about 10 feet. Just over off about 2 feet.
Why the shuttle? Money. Lower cost. The shuttle can be reused maybe 100 times to bring down the cost of sending a payload into orbit or bringing one back. Way, way down. The shuttle is a big space truck. The Pentagon expects it to give America a superiority from a military standpoint by launching satellites that are warning satellites, fighting satellites. Astronomers look to the shuttle to launch giant telescopes that will allow us to see the farthest reaches of the universe without the distorting effects of the Earth's atmosphere. And surely the shuttle will open the door to a revolution in communications with satellites that can handle up to 25 million simultaneous telephone calls. And no doubt, one day, the shuttle will carry in its cargo bay the components of orbiting factories and space communities, all in a volume much as we're in now, which is a cargo bay area of the shuttle, about the size of a railroad boxcar, with one important difference. The men and women who work in this boxcar will be working in the vacuum of outer space, because even with the doors closed, there will be no air in here. They will be wearing space suits. They'll make their way along these yellow handholds, weightless. And the doors, which look like a vaulted silver ceiling above us, and now closed, will be open while the craft is orbiting. And there's an important reason for this. Let's take a look at a model. One of the reasons for these doors goes beyond merely the loading and unloading of space cargo. You notice that they are lined with silver panels. And because of heat buildup in the shuttle, to control that temperature, these doors have to be capable of opening. And on this mission, they will have to open. If they fail to open, the shuttle will cut short the mission and land after a few orbits before the heat builds unacceptably. If they open and fail to close, then astronaut Crippen will be obliged to don his spacesuit and come out into the cargo bay area and close them by hand, because the shuttle cannot re-enter and land with these doors open. This mission is full of firsts. The first space flight of the shuttle. The first test of a new kind of insulating tiles in the heat of re-entry. The first manned space flight that has not been tested unmanned. And incidentally, the first Americans in space in 6 years. Not all of these firsts are favorable. On paper and in theory, all of these things will work. But if theories and drawing boards were all that were necessary, there would be no such thing as test pilots. And that's exactly what Crippen and Young are on this mission. Test pilots. There are 34,000 of these tiles glued to the outside of the shuttle to protect it from the heat of the friction of the atmosphere on re-entry. No two of the tiles are exactly the same size or shape. Now, these tiles have come loose in tests and during transport. NASA now believes that they will stay put. Well, this cockpit and the other crew spaces, and not just for Crippen and Young, but for others, scientists and specialists who will be making other missions, is very cramped. And the reason, again, money. This is an orbiting truck, remember, and the bulk of the space is allocated to cargo. That's the meaning of payload. Landing one of these space shuttles isn't easy. I tried it in simulator some months ago, and several times I blew tires. I'm bringing the nose up a little bit so we don't build the speed up too much.
Now, we want to anticipate this next turn so we don't have to turn back.
That's right.
Go ahead and roll back. Roll back and look at your pitch.
Right.
There's 1,000 feet.
Pre-flare. You all right? Gear it down.
Wheels are coming down. No, just slowly. Don't rock and roll it.
Okay.
We're long, we're long.
Well, we're running off the runway, but outside of that... Oh, damn, did I hit too hard? Did I blow a tire again? Son of a gun, I'm rough on tires. Well, that was a simulation, of course. Right now, the real space shuttle, Columbia, is on launch pad 39A at Cape Canaveral in Florida. We'll go there in a moment for the latest information and for a story told by Frank Reynolds about a moment of crisis faced by the crew and ground controllers of Apollo 13, which lifted off from that very same launch pad 11 years ago. That ordeal was a tough lesson in emergency responses for many of the same people who will control the shuttle mission. After this.
Came the king of the jungle.
And the controllers for the space shuttle mission have come on duty for the long night of the countdown to tomorrow's launch. Men and women have been guiding America's space efforts from here for 16 years. Our entire space program has been built on testing from the early missions of Mercury through Gemini to Apollo. Each project was built on knowledge gained from missions that went before. Sometimes they learned from trouble. My colleague Frank Reynolds is standing by at Cape Canaveral, Florida, where tonight the Space Shuttle Columbia, America's latest program, sits on pad 39A in its final countdown, moving closer to the next venture away from Earth. Frank, how do things stand at the moment?
Hugh, the countdown was resumed late this afternoon after a planned hold of about 12 hours. Tonight, the 3 fuel cells in the orbiter have been activated. A check has been made of air-to-ground communications and tracking systems, and a backup astronaut will check all switches in the crew cockpit to make sure they're set just right. Although this is a new adventure, many of these same pre-flight checks were carried out before the launch of the Apollo spacecrafts. And it was 11 years ago this week that the Cape was in the same state of readiness for the launch of a space mission that did not turn out as expected, but did have a happy, almost miraculous ending.
On that power transfer.
April 11, 1970, Apollo 13 is ready for launch. It is the 5th time the United States will send men to the moon. For the 3rd time, men plan to land there. Jim Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert will attempt on Apollo 13 something never done before. Lovell and Hayes plan to land in the rocky lunar highlands, far from the relative safety of the flat lunar seas. All 3 are test pilots. They are used to danger. It's their life, and it's in their blood. They are among the best in the world. In the words of writer Tom Wolfe, they have the right stuff. Lovell, the spacecraft commander, America's most experienced astronaut. This will be his 4th trip into space, his 2nd to the moon. Hayes, pilot of the lunar module Aquarius. He'd tested aircraft like the lifting body and flown contraptions like the lunar landing test vehicle. His colleagues consider him one of the most qualified astronauts ever. Swigert, pilot of the command module Odyssey. He had tested the Rogallo wing, a plan to land Gemini spacecraft by glider rather than parachute. NASA discarded that idea as too dangerous. He had been assigned to Apollo 13 only the day before, a replacement for Ken Mattingly, who'd been exposed to German measles. Swigert knows the command module like the back of his hand. He's written the book on what to do if things go wrong.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit and we have liftoff at 2:13. Saturn V building up to 7.6 million pounds of thrust, and it is cleared the tower.
As Apollo 13 begins its journey, lunar missions are thought routine. But the flight of Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert will bring them and the men and women of Apollo Control together in a moment of crisis. The beginning of the mission is routine, relaxed. As the astronauts start toward the moon, they turn the command module around and dock with the lunar module Aquarius. It's a complicated maneuver, but the astronauts are so confident, they broadcast the docking live back to Earth.
Yeah, we're just about there. About 10 more feet now. Roger. Everything looks pretty good down there.
There is plenty of work to be done during the coast to the moon. The 3 parts of the Apollo spacecraft form a complicated machine, and each part has its job. The command module, Odyssey, is the astronauts' home. It will bring them to the moon and back to a landing on Earth. The service module carries the supplies for the round trip. Aquarius, the lunar module, will bring Lovell and Hayes to a landing on the lunar surface. The astronauts have systems to check, photographs to take, TV feeds to be made on schedule. But it is the men in mission control who do most of the work. They have the huge computers, the radar tracking devices, the teams of people who monitor every part of the spacecraft. It is the work of men like flight directors Gene Kranz and Glyn Lunny, controller Cy Liebergott, and capsule communicator Joe Kerwin that makes Apollo missions possible.
Good morning, 13. Your spacecraft's in real good shape as far as we're concerned, Jim. We're aboard the Tears down here.
Monday, April 13th. Apollo 13 is 180,000 miles from Earth, 3/4 of the way to the moon. Its speed is nearly a mile a second. Lovell and Hayes are checking out the lunar lander and giving a TV tour to anyone who cares to watch. But public interest has fallen off, and none of the networks carries the show. Apollo 13 will reach the moon tomorrow, and there are many small problems and details to attend to before the crew goes to bed.
Okay, Jim, it's been a real good TV show. We think we ought to conclude it from here now. What do you think?
This is the crew of Apollo 13. Wish everybody there a nice evening, and we're just about ready to close out our inspection of Aquarius and get back for a pleasant evening at Odyssey. Good night.
One of the small things that needs attention is a problem Cy Liebergott, one of the experts for the command and service modules, has been nursing all evening. He has been having trouble finding out how much is left in one of the service module's tanks of super cold oxygen. It is one of the cryogenic tanks, or cryos, that provide the spacecraft with its oxygen, power, and water. To get a better reading, Liebergott needs the tank to be stirred. He doesn't know that inside that tank a switch had fused shut during a routine test on the ground 2 weeks before liftoff. It had allowed the tank to overheat, and now inside a tank of pure oxygen, the wires for its fans and heaters were bare. The insulation had melted. It is a bomb waiting to explode, and it can go off any time the tanks are stirred or heated.
13, we've got one more item for you when you get a chance. We'd like it to stir up your cryo tanks.
Okay, stand by.
Swigert hits the switch, and in the service module, 4 feet behind him, the fuse is lit. In seconds, the insulation is in flames. Bathed in pure oxygen, it burns furiously. The top of the tank blows off, and the tank becomes a blowtorch, spewing fire and hot gas inside the Apollo service module. Vital lines tear, valves slam shut, and the side of the service module blows off. Instantly, half of the astronaut's oxygen supply is gone, and within minutes, 2 of the 3 fuel cells that generate power and water will die. The astronauts don't know what has happened. They know they're in trouble.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem. And we had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning there.
To me, it was a shudder. It was a muffled shudder. All I really thought was, this is not normal, and it may be something very bad.
There was doubt in our minds exactly what caused the noise.
Nothing made sense, because what it said to me was that I had lost oxygen tank number 2, and oxygen tank 1 had a leak in it, and I had lost 2 fuel cells.
Return.
For the next 15 minutes, the astronauts and the ground struggle to understand the problem and cope with it. In mission control, it seems impossible that something that serious could have happened at all. And at first they think that their instruments are lying to them.
We may have had an instrumentation problem, Flight.
Is there any kind of leads we can give them? Are we looking at instrumentation, or we got a real problem, or what?
It became fairly clear within 30 minutes or so that we had a desperate situation on our hands. We were losing all the electrical power in the command service module and the breathing oxygen.
And it looks to me, looking out the hatch, that we are venting something. We are venting something out into space.
We're losing oxygen from our second and last bottle.
It became very obvious to us that we were going to lose the mothership.
Here is a bulletin from ABC News. The Apollo 13 spacecraft has had a serious power supply malfunction that could cause the lunar landing mission to be terminated early.
No lunar mission had ever failed, and Krantz and his team try everything. But the explosion has destroyed the service module's ability to generate power and water, and with that gone, the command module is slowly dying. The command module is the brain of the spacecraft. It has the computers, the guidance equipment. Only the command module can re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. But the service module is the heart. It carries the oxygen, power, and rocket fuel for the round trip to the moon.
Okay, now let's everybody keep cool. We got the LEM still attached. The LEM spacecraft's good, so if we need To get back home, we got a LEM to do a good portion of it with.
The only way to get home was to use the lunar module as a lifeboat.
The lunar module is a spacecraft all its own, but it was designed only to land on the moon. It carries supplies to last 2 men, 2 days. Its rocket has half the power of the service module engine, and it was not designed to return to Earth. Somehow the LEM supplies have to stretch to keep the men alive, and the LEM rocket has to do a job it was never meant to do: change course back to Earth.
Getting back on Apollo 13, which a lot of people don't realize, was a series of milestones. We would overcome one obstacle, and then something else would crop up to give us a challenge, to try to make us figure out what to do.
Well, without the ground's help, we never would have gotten back.
No one is more aware of that dependence than the men in mission control. This is their ultimate test, but it is more than that. 3 of their friends are in danger.
Are you satisfied that both of these tanks are going down and we're past helping them, even with batteries? That's what I'm getting at. I'm trying to be sure that you're satisfied that there's nothing else we can do.
Our whole attitude was we were going to do everything humanly possible to bring him back.
But the astronauts can't turn around and come back. They've gone too far and are going too fast. They have to go around the moon. But their present course will take them far out into space. They have to change that course and use the moon's gravity like a slingshot to throw them back to Earth. It's called a free return course.
If we could get back on that free return course to get us around the moon and back to the Earth, even though we intercepted the Earth in a manner that did not allow ourselves to survive, I mean a direct impact or something like that, it would be much better to end the mission in that manner than to be a permanent monument, to the space program by orbiting the Earth forever.
They have to use the lunar module's rocket, the one meant to land them on the moon.
This maneuver has to work. If it doesn't work, there's almost no place else to go. And as most of you are aware, there is no rescue possible in spaceflight.
The rocket burns only a short time, 31 seconds, and it puts them back on course for Earth. But it will take 4 days to reach the Earth, and their worries are only beginning. 4 days is much longer than the LEM is designed to last. Will it have enough oxygen? Will it have enough water? Can batteries meant to last only 2 days be stretched to last twice that long? And the LEM can't bring them all the way home. Only the command module has a heat shield capable of withstanding the 5,000-degree heat of re-entry. But never has all power in a command module been turned off in the cold of space. And no one knows if it will ever work again. Tuesday, 1 day after the accident, Apollo 13 is behind the moon, 250,000 miles from home. The ground decides to speed up the return and use the lunar module's rocket a second time. This time, the burn will last 4.5 minutes and bring them back to Earth 9 hours faster, heading them toward the Pacific, the only place in the world that recovery ships are stationed. The burn will use 3/4 of the fuel they have left.
Each of those procedures and maneuvers had to go right. And we recognized the chance for something going wrong in any of the maneuvers was large. And but we were all test pilots. We've all been in narrow situations before. This is another one of those.
My attitude was one that we would do everything possible right up to the very last bit. If we bought the farm after that, well, we would go out knowing that we had done everything that we could do.
Jim, you go for the burn. Go for the burn. Roger, understand. Go for the burn.
The burn works, and for the first time, the astronauts are on their way back to Earth. But in mission control, there is no time for congratulations. Many problems remain. Communication is difficult. The radio is drawing its minimum power.
What I remember mostly during the long hours of return is sitting hunched over at the console with my headset on and the volume turned all the way up. And the voice contact with the crew would be an occasional thing, low in volume through a whole lot of hash and static.
I'm afraid I didn't copy that, Fred.
Wednesday, 200,000 miles from home. As the astronauts watch the moon recede, they have turned off nearly everything. Only the radio and a fan to circulate air are left on. The entire spacecraft is operating on the power it would take to light 3 100-watt bulbs. The spacecraft is dark and getting cold.
The temperature here was about 38 degrees, but it was more than that. It was a clammy cold. It made sleeping very difficult. And what sleep you did was very restless. It was not good sleep.
It is the first time since the accident that the astronauts have had a chance to sleep at all. Ironically, the astronauts make far more news for failing to reach the moon than they would have for landing successfully. People who know or care little for the machines that bring them there know what it means for those machines to fail and care about the men that fly them.
Lord, your astronauts will come back safe.
Mission Control is developing the plan to bring them back to Earth. If everything in the spacecraft remains off until the last possible minute, then, just before re-entry, the command module can be brought back to life using the power of 3 small re-entry batteries. There will be just enough power to last until splashdown. The plan is tested in simulators on the ground, and it should work if nothing more goes wrong. But something does go wrong. Apollo 13 is drifting off course, and if not corrected, they will miss the Earth entirely.
Here is a special report from ABC News Space Headquarters in New York. ABC News Science Editor, Jules Bergman.
Apollo 13 is now 160,000 miles from home, and Jim Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert, in a beautiful piece of engineering piloting, are battling to keep their crippled spacecraft working. The all-critical event, that mid-course correction engine burn that must work, is now less than 4 hours off. On their present heading, they'd skip over the Earth, missing it by about 98 miles.
The correction is a small one to change their speed less than 6 miles per hour. But that is the difference between life and death for the astronauts. They have to follow a very precise path to hit the Earth's atmosphere at the right angle. Too shallow, they will skip off and go back out into space. Too steep, and they will burn up on re-entry.
It was literally flying by the seat of your pants. I had in the spacecraft a reticle or a gun sight that hung down in the window. We have 2 hand controllers for attitude. Fred has one, I had another. We got the Earth in the window, maneuvered it around. Of course, everything is manual now. All the exotic autopilots and the guidance system, everything is off. So at the proper time, Jack said, start the burn. I pushed the button, and the engine went on full blast immediately. And 14 seconds later, Jack said stop, and we pushed the stop button, and the engine stopped. And after that, we waited.
The ground radars soon tell them that the course correction has worked, but the spacecraft is still drifting. The whole procedure has to be repeated.
It was a matter of having faith in the ground as far as what the maneuvers were. We had absolutely no guidance or navigation capability at this point, so the solutions were strictly based on the ground track, and was really just follow the yellow brick road.
There is no yellow brick road for the men in Mission Control. Each new step has to be improvised every step of the way, and they have a deadline to meet. Apollo 13 will reach the Earth on Friday going 25,000 miles an hour. The astronauts have only one chance to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. Thursday, 150,000 miles from home. The plan to bring the command module back to life is radioed up to the astronauts. It takes hours just to read it. And no one knows if the plan will work at all. The command module has gotten so cold that the ground fears the batteries may have frozen and the circuits may break as they warm up. Friday, the carrier Iwo Jima steams to the point in the South Pacific where it will wait for a capsule carrying 3 cold, tired men. Men who are not at all sure they'll make the appointment. 2.5 hours before re-entry, the command module is still dead. But when Swigert starts to turn on the power, the batteries work. The procedure is long and complicated, and things sometimes take more time than expected.
The Earth kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you knew that you had limited time to accomplish all those tasks, to get everything done, because as we approached the Earth, we were going to hit that atmosphere, and you had one chance.
Fred Hayes is sick. He has a fever of 104 and severe chills. He continues to work. Finally, it is time to cut loose the crippled service module. For the first time, the astronauts see the damage.
And there's one whole side of that spacecraft missing.
Is that right?
Really a mess.
Next, the astronauts pack up and move to the command module. The LEM, Aquarius, has saved their lives, but it is doomed to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere and must be jettisoned.
Farewell, Aquarius, and we thank you.
From now on, it is the command module on its own, and there are still uncertainties. The capsule is still drifting and may leave the re-entry corridor again.
If we had, somehow missed the Earth, drifted on by, it was my intention that we would remain alive as long as possible, even though that the hope for survival was lost, and that maybe towards the very end, all we had to do was to depressurize the spacecraft by opening up a vent, and we could have done ourselves in that manner.
Even if the capsule enters perfectly, the astronauts and the ground fear that the heat shield may have cracked when the oxygen tank exploded. If it did, Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert will be dead within seconds of hitting the Earth's atmosphere. For several minutes, there is no word. The heat of re-entry blocks all communication. As the recovery helicopters take their stations, there is still no contact. In mission control, the wait seems to last forever. Long after they expect to hear from the astronauts, they hear only silence and static.
Capcom, why don't you try and give him a call?
Odyssey Houston, standing by, over. Okay, go. Okay, we read you, Jack. Visual contact, slide. Odyssey Houston, we show you on the mains. It really looks great. Recovery and your shoes look good.
Capcom, I think the recovery force has got him now.
In the end, there would be those who would say that Apollo 13 was a failure, but in a more human sense, it was a triumph of men over their machines, a triumph of the nerve, skill, and brains of the men of Apollo control. And 3 astronauts, Jim Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert, tested in a moment of crisis.
And with me now is the man who first said those words, literally heard around the world. Houston, we've got a problem. Jim Lovell, the commander of Apollo 13. Jim, what did we learn from Apollo 13 in terms of men and machines and training and so forth?
Well, I think we learned quite a bit, Frank. Number one, we learned that everything doesn't work the way you want it to work. We're all fallible to some degree. But 2, we learned that we can come back from a potential catastrophe where just about everything goes wrong, and with the willpower and the knowledge and the skills from the ground and from the flight crew, we can get back safely.
But it doesn't mean we can overcome anything at all, does it? I mean, you were pretty close to the edge there.
Well, we had to leap over a series of hurdles to get back home. We just finished one problem and another one would crop up. But it did give us the flexibility and sort of a sense of satisfaction to take something that was unusual and make a success out of it.
Well, we discovered the outer limits of man and of the machines, too, didn't we?
That's right. Yeah, we pushed them just about to the limits.
Mm-hmm. And now you're a quiet, conservative businessman leading a prosaic life. Huh?
Yes, I found out that even outside in the private sector, it's just as hectic as the space program.
Well, what do you think about tonight as you look out there, 39A? You know what it's like to be here the night before a launch when you're going to ride something up into space.
Well, I'm just a little bit envious, obviously, because you see the same thrills and the same excitement down here at Cape Kennedy that I experienced years ago, and would just love to be in John's spot just one more time.
Well, we're very grateful that you're not going to be in the kind of a spot that you were in once before, and we certainly hope that that doesn't happen to this crew. Thank you very much, Jim Lovell, for coming by tonight.
Thank you, Frank.
It was a great triumph, of course, but it was also a very close call. And especially when you remember that the night before the launch of Apollo 13, 11 years ago, there was really the same sense of confidence here at the Cape that is present tonight. Now, nobody here or in Houston expects serious problems, but they must anticipate, that something could go wrong. And it is kind of comforting to recall that many of the same people who brought Apollo 13 home are also actively involved in making sure that Columbia comes back safely. Hugh?
Thank you, Frank. We want to remind you ABC News will bring you coverage of
that the night before the launch of Apollo 13, 11 years ago, there was really the same sense of confidence here at the Cape that is present tonight. Now, nobody here or in Houston expects serious problems, but they must anticipate, that something could go wrong. And it is kind of comforting to recall that many of the same people who brought Apollo 13 home are also actively involved in making sure that Columbia comes back safely. Hugh?
Thank you, Frank. We want to remind you ABC News will bring you coverage of the Space Shuttle Columbia over the next few days. Well, next on